This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your sensei, Brian McMahon. Now, in Season 1 and 2, I got inside the minds of startup investors. In Season 3, I brought in entrepreneurs to share their startup journey. Here, in Season 4, we combine both, so you can hear investors critique the investment value proposition of individual companies. You're going to hear how investors make decisions to invest in startups, what makes a great entrepreneur, and how billion-dollar companies are built. So tune in every Tuesday, 10 a.m. on all the major platforms. You can empower your tribe by sharing the podcast, and remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave us a comment. Good morning, it's Tuesday morning, it is 10 o'clock, it's Brian back here from Expert Dojo. I'm here again with my friend Andrew from a very well...
I'm still trapped here.
You're never leaving.
Stuck in the fridge.
You'll never get to leave. You want to, so for me, I got, also Jean-Eric is here as well, brilliant entrepreneur. So we're going to talk today about the same thing that we always talk about. How do we get a phenomenal entrepreneur with a brilliant product who's changing the world in a really strong way? And then how do we look at that from a venture perspective, which is where Andrew comes in, who's well used to investing in the seed stage and beyond.
Primarily beyond.
Yeah, primarily beyond. So you can take us all the way, right? So Jean-Eric, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent. So let's talk about you. So obviously I know all about you because we're invested in you, right? Which means full disclosure, we love this guy because we put $50,000 into him and we believe that he is going to be the future of gaming.
Definitely.
Boom. Right, which is a big friggin' category right now. So can we talk a little bit about, normally I launch into when did you come up with the idea, where was it? But I want to focus very much at the beginning on you and your background within gaming, because I want to establish a domain expertise for people who are listening. So hit us, take us from the start.
Yeah, so I guess back in college, I studied computer science and worked as a graphic designer on the side. So I've kind of been a little bit of everything. I'm known as a unicorn in the game industry, an artist with a computer science degree. And just I have absolutely loved gaming all my life. And everything I've done and learned is to make great games.
And why?
Because I love them. Like my oldest memory is playing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the NES as a child. And it's been a part of me throughout all of my life. I absolutely love gaming.
Okay, so then you went directly into gaming immediately after school?
Right after college. Actually, during college, I got an internship at Obsidian where I worked for 5 years on a bunch of RPGs, great people over there.
So talk to people who are listening. Some people will be in the gaming space and they get it, but talk to people about what are RPGs and what when you're going into a gaming company, like what are the different components that are required to build a phenomenal game?
Yeah. So an RPG, for those that don't know, is a role-playing game. It's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but with visuals. Instead of a nerd behind a table just telling you what to do. And basically one of the things I love about games is it requires almost every creative medium coming together and working together as a team in order to create something successful. So you need the artists, you need the storytellers, the game designers, you need the visual effects people, the audio people, you need actors doing voiceovers for characters, you need programmers programming things so you can make all of that and bring it all together. It requires almost everyone to come together as a team to make great games.
It's like a movie, but harder.
Yeah, it's like trying to make a movie and a tech app at the same time.
Wow. So when you went into those games, what kind of experience did you pick up?
A ton. So I started off as a UI artist. My first job was
user interface for everybody listening, right? Which is massively important because if people don't like how stuff looks, like Fortnite, if you don't like how it looks, you ain't ever going to go there. It's never going to be worth billions of dollars.
Yeah. My first job was making 1,000 icons for a D&D game. I just sat there just painting icons all day. And then from there, I taught myself 3D and environment art and went into what's called a technical artist role where I was writing tools for artists and helping them with the more technical things. And most of my career was spent doing that, was actually making tools for artists and helping them succeed. And one of the things I love doing. And then I eventually transitioned into the product manager role where I was leading teams of up to 50 people into making great products.
So what's the most important role? Is there a role where it's the Brad Pitt role?
That's the beauty of games. There really isn't. And, you see Grandma's Boy and you see the genius with the idea, the creative visionary trying to do everything. And what I love about gaming is that person doesn't actually exist. It's literally you have to work as a team. and you cannot create successful games unless you're with a great team.
I assume that's unless you make very simple games.
Yes, there are the solo people, indie devs that make small games that can do it on their own. And there's some great ones out there, but to make the AAA games, it's pretty tough.
Like I assume like an old style game like Worms could nowadays be made by a single person.
Yeah,
without a year or two.
I love that game.
Was an amazing game. If you've never played it, find it, play it.
It's the best game.
It's Worms with guns. So it's fun.
So look, now I guess the only real question that I have, which is, how do you make a game which is going to be a blockbuster?
Yeah.
And me and Andrew will just sit back now, and you're just going to explain to everyone.
I get to learn about an industry I know almost nothing about.
What is the formula? Because it is insane. Like, you look at Fortnite. How much money are they making right now?
Over $1 billion a year.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
In cash, revenue coming through.
Does that include the 30% takes?
From iOS? Yeah, most of their revenue, I think, comes from PC and console, which don't take any.
And it's like 15 on Steam or something?
Yeah.
Well, I just think it's pure genius. The way they came in with the freemium model, and then they created. I think I got my kid a $70 jacket.
What?
Virtual jacket or $60
Why?
virtual jacket. You know what I'm talking about. Because that's what you do. It's
pay to look
stupid.
good.
And they send it in a plastic box, which has got nothing in it except for a card that has a code on it that's like, here you go. There's a virtual jacket waiting for you in the game.
The organic growing plants wasn't enough. He needed a virtual jacket to be happy.
I'm saying it's brilliant. It's the greatest genius revenue model that's ever existed. And I think this is why gaming has blown up. I mean, okay, you're going to tell us, firstly, tell us what makes a great game. And then we're going to find out, how gaming came to the place it came to today.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the most important thing for a great game is it has to be fun. That is first and foremost. If a game is not fun, it will never be successful. After that, you require kind of two factors. Competent technology, where the game's not crashing every 2 seconds while you're playing it or lagging or there's bugs and issues, and an appealing art style. And so those three things combined can define almost every successful game that we have out there.
So let's talk about the games. Bring me through some of the last 4 or 5.
Wait, what was that third one again?
Appealing art style.
Okay.
And
I'm taking my notes.
Yeah, you are killing it over there.
And even something like Minecraft, which doesn't have the greatest art style, it's not the most mind-blowing 3D graphics, whatever. It's still appealing, right? And that's what grabs people.
So go through the last few games, maybe in order of what they had that was particularly special. Maybe one of those 3 factors was more special than the others, so we can get a feel as to kind of where we're going to right now.
Which last 3 games?
Oh, like the last 3 or 5 huge blockbuster games that have come through that have made. We can start with Fortnite if you like.
Like League.
$1 billion League,
League, Fortnite. Let's see, that's a great question. So I would say the big thing that they all started with was a foundation of fun. Both of those games, and actually a lot of very popular games out there right now, started in what's called the mod scene. It's where players or developers modify a game slightly and then put out a custom build for other people to play. And so League of Legends was actually a Dota mod, which was actually a mod of a game called Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
And so basically people iterate on these fun ideas they have. They keep trying out different things, and that allows them to what I call find the fun. They're able to find what makes this game fun instead of a lot of games we see now. They kind of work for 4 years in a silo, ship something, and hope people find it fun. So that's the absolute first thing is they found something that was fun and built off of it. Fortnite was a PUBG or PlayerUnknown's Battleground mod, what you would call it. They took that 70% of it is exactly the same. 20% is tweaked slightly, polished a little bit, and then that 10% is where the innovation comes in. And that's what truly makes a great game, is where you can take that 10% of innovation and really make something new and unique for players that excites them.
Beautiful. So this takes us to you. So now that everybody's got a nice little foundation of how great games are built, and also we know how much money can be made from them, because with $1 billion a year, I haven't seen the latest valuation for Fortnite, but it's got to be...
But they're also very expensive to make because they are a technology combined with a movie, essentially.
So it's a big risk, right? And this is why in the early stage, it would be scary for someone like yourself, Andrew.
Oh, it's impossibly
bordering
scary.
on terrifying.
But I've already told Jean-Eric this. I met him at an investor festival that this guy across from me, Brian, put on. And I told him right away, I can't invest in something like this, but it's really cool and it's something I would play.
But there's a time when you so what is the components then? Okay, so now we've seen the components of the games themselves to actually become $1 billion in revenue game, which is just the only thing that sticks in my head. What are the components of the teams that can build those games?
Yeah, so you have to have extremely passionate people. That's first and foremost. People that really love and play games, they care about games, and they care about the players that make those games. That needs to come first. If you don't work with people that play games when you're making games, it's not going to be a good game. They don't care. They're just there for a day job. And, making games doesn't pay a ton. And so you really need to have passionate people because they'll be good. So that's the first step is people that make games. I personally love finding people that are what we call like T-shaped developers. They go deep in one area, but they can also go broad in a few areas as well. They're not just specialized into one specific area and that's all they do. And that's great, especially in a startup world where, they can do a little bit of everything. They're not stuck into one type of role.
Okay, and how long is it going to take to develop this game?
We're looking at 12 months, which is pretty short for game development, actually.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so let's move to you now. I kind of tease for a while.
He still hasn't told anyone what the game is.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Let's move to him now. I want to go for his personal journey. So now we're all experts on gaming. We know how it works. We know how much money can be made. We know how long it takes to make them. So when was the moment you decided, I am going to create the next Ultimate Fun game?
And I've been sitting on this idea for a couple of years now. And was always like, man, why hasn't anyone made this game? Like, it just makes sense. It's so obvious. Why hasn't anyone made this? And it took me a couple years to realize, wait, I can make this game. Why am I waiting for someone else to do it? I can do it. And, I left my job at Riot when I worked on League of Legends and started looking around for new jobs. Nothing was really challenging or exciting. And I was like, man, I think it's time. I think it's time to take this risk, take this jump, and make the game I've always wanted to play.
And then what did you do?
The first thing I did was start asking advisors what I should do. Start doing internet research, start looking at how do you even start? How do you make a pitch deck? How do you network? How do you go meet investors? Who invests in games? And I started researching all of the investors that invest in games. And
we don't invest in games.
Yeah, but at what point did you find Expert Dojo?
It was actually through my uncle. So I told my uncle that I was starting my own company. He's also an entrepreneur. And he's like, oh, I know these guys at Expert Dojo. I work with them. Why don't you come to this mixer? And that's how I met you guys.
We had never done a game before. And games
I don't think you've done one since, have you?
No, because it's terrifying. Because everything is on the person. Everything, right? Every single thing you're doing. And most of the things you look at the industry. Like you think about the podcast we did before. We look at the industry. We look at the value proposition. We look at the product fit. Everything is the person. So it's about the domain expertise, where they've come from, and why they're building what they're building.
I think a lot of that goes back to those three factors, right? It's very hard to determine what is fun without having the item to test.
Yes.
Fun it's also very subjective. And appealing art, that's about the only thing I can see at this point. I can see, oh great, your art's cool, and I hope your technology works out and that the game is fun.
Yeah, you're believing 100% in the person.
It's harder than investing in movies, which is another thing I will never do.
But the upside is phenomenal. Like if you touch gold in a movie. You touch gold in a movie without a main actor or main star. God bless you. You found something like nobody else.
Right. You're lucky.
Found, right?
You're lucky if you gross 100.
Exactly. You touch gold in a game. That's it. Everybody. Next thing you're doing Angry Birds movie, right? You own everything.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that the gaming industry. We're talking about industries. Gaming industry is blowing up right now. Mobile gaming is just getting better and better, and as the power increases on our phones, what you can do is better. I mean, you were telling me you're compiling in Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine was something that no one ever thought you could use on a mobile device. I mean, you used to have a gaming desktop to play anything built in Unreal. Like, was Far Cry Unreal, I think, right?
No, Far Cry was Crytek.
Crytek, sorry. But like games like that back in the day, you needed giant machines that were
very
$6,000 or $7,000. And now you can do it on your cell phone.
Yeah, which is absolutely huge. But for us, you're right. It's all about the people. Alex called me up and he said, I met this guy, Jean-Eric. He is phenomenal. And I cannot give you a value proposition. I cannot give you a due diligence. I cannot give you a product fit. I can't actually tell you anything at all. I can just tell you that we should invest in this guy. Seriously. And we've never done a deal like it before, and we haven't done a deal like it since. But in the space itself, I think that's the play that you have to make. You choose your winner, and you stick with that.
And for those of you that know Alex, that's a pretty huge endorsement.
Yeah, like if I'm a repressed Catholic,
I'm very surprised, and I've spent 2 of the last 4 days with
only
Alex.
time he's ever said it to me. Like, Alex is the most structure, unless something can actually thread all the way through, he'll never even do it. But it speaks a lot to you and to what you're building right now. So what is it that makes you so sure and of the product, and how do you see the progression of the product going forward? And part of me is interested and part of me is praying.
Part of it is my love and passion for gaming, and especially racing games. I held a Mario Kart 64 world record at one point in my life.
I'm very jealous.
way.
I'm very jealous. I am horrible at games.
That's a round of
I am
applause,
horrible
right?
at games.
So I love this stuff, right? And so I know what good looks like as the first step. Wario Stadium. Yeah.
You're such a geek.
It was an unofficial world record.
I am
yes.
definitely a geek. I have Xbox on 3 of the TVs, Xbox One on 3 televisions in my house. So yes, I'm very into it.
So yeah, that's kind of the first step, is having that domain expertise, that passion, that knowledge for it. The second step is I'm not guessing. Like, within 2 months, we already had to build out 2 playtesters to get feedback from them to see if it's fun for them or not. And to see, like, what's missing, what's the most painful thing about the game, what do you hate? If you could change one thing, what would it be? If you could add one thing, what would it be? And we've already gotten over 20 different play tests with tons of different users to tell us if the game is fun or not. So, like, we're not guessing, we're not waiting to hopefully see if we get a hit. Like, we already know if we have a hit or not.
How are you getting that feedback? I think that's really important. How are you getting that feedback? Are you asking them questions? Are you doing it on a number system? How is that feedback being brought in? How are you structuring that feedback internally?
Yeah, so it's both qualitative and quantitative. So every time they play test, I'm sitting there with them, listening to the questions they're asking. Every time I hear, like, oh, whoa, I'm like, oh, what just happened? Like, tell me, explain to me what happened. And I love just bringing my computer around and having people play so I can just actually watch them as well. And so I'm getting that feedback. I'm taking notes the whole time with our development team listening in. And then afterwards, I send them a survey asking them a ton of quantitative questions to get those numbers, to get the actual hard data about how it's doing.
And are any of those asking about price points or anything like that, or is this just all about play?
All about play. Yeah. Price points will come later once we find the fun and have that appealing art style and competent technology. It's a lot easier to measure what the price points are.
And I love his focus on the quality as well. I remember we were outside at one of the investor festivals. I'm saying, how much is it going to cost for the next piece? He's got a couple of $1 million, like $2 million, I think you said to me. I'm going, so, and of course I moved directly into Brian mode. So how can we do that for
Like $100?
and he said,
43 cents?
and Jean-Eric's like, you don't get it. It has to be incredible. You cannot cut down on the fun. You can't like have a and we went through this
There
entire...
is no MVP? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we went through this dummy's guide to building the most brilliant game that's ever been put on this planet, and you can't cut corners on it. If anything, you have to boost it up. But you know the beautiful thing about this space, especially for later stage investors, they get it. They get it, and they base it on the domain expertise. And I love what you're saying about building it in parts so that you can get continual feedback. So by the time you have the game built, you know already it's the game that people love.
Yeah.
And then okay, so let's talk a little bit about scaling. So we're going to assume, obviously, you have the money to get it started. We're going to put you in front of every gaming investor over the next 2-3 months to make sure that we line up the $2 million. As people see the game develop and get into a better place, that's going to become easier and easier and easier. I've heard Andrew ask questions here before, and some of the interesting ones that he focuses on are, how can scale become a problem for you? So I don't want to take the question out of your mouth, but I do think it's particularly relevant here, right?
Yeah, I think actually the first time I met Jean-Eric, I told him there's someone you need to meet. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Well, I told you needed to meet a founder of another company that's been on the podcast, Kerry, a Sonic Pass, because his background is actually in scaling games.
Nice.
Oh
yeah, I actually met him that day.
You did?
Yeah.
I think I introduced you. And I think that's an area where like you personally don't have the experience in scaling up games, and that's the kind of thing. I mean, you see games where the servers go down all the time. I mean, even companies like EA have these problems.
Oh yeah.
So this is a serious problem in the game, because the buzz is not long term. Buzz in the gaming world can be a week, right? Because the next, I think it's now Friday that they do launches. The next Friday, is it still Friday that they launches, or is it? It used to be Tuesdays, I think, right?
Yeah, Tuesdays.
It's still Tuesdays. Okay, every other industry moved to Fridays, but every Tuesday, new games come out and buzz disappears. So you have to be able to hit and go hard that 1 week and not fail. And you have to be prepared for million users.
There was a game, Royale, came out, got over 3 million downloads. Within 3 months, they lost 95% of their players.
No.
Yeah.
Competent technology.
Yep.
Because because it was built on just junk technology?
It was the technology, the iterations that they made weren't player focused, and they made no sense to players, and so it wasn't there. No, it was just like balancing champions that didn't need to be balanced. Players were just really confused by the updates, and there just wasn't enough content there, so players just got bored.
And it disappeared.
Yeah.
That sucks. Better to be poor forever, really, than to be rich and then go poor again. That sucks. Like, because you'll always remember those 3 million users you don't have anymore.
And they didn't make a penny.
They made nothing.
They didn't monetize.
Are you going to be monetizing from the front?
Yeah.
From the beginning?
Yeah.
From day one?
Yeah. It'll be free to play, but
Right.
we'll have the cosmetic content and stuff to monetize for sure.
So all I'm thinking is, Jean-Eric is saying, so how do you make sure that doesn't happen?
Yeah.
But going back to that scaling issue, it's not. It's a little more than scaling. But are you going to? Other people going to be able to mod you, or
Eventually, yeah.
eventually open source?
That will be part of the long-term plan. So there's another problem with scaling in video games where you can actually scale too large. And that was an issue we had on League of Legends where the development team was over 500 people. And just getting anything done was difficult. You know, you start to move slower and slower, and you can't make decisions fast enough to keep up with players.
And that's when they try to get you to stay longer hours. And I don't think most people know, but Riot actually has like a sick campus
Yeah,
with
beautiful.
3 free meals a day
it's pretty
for
awesome.
employees to try to get people to stay longer.
Yeah.
It's like a tech company, but it's actually a gaming company. They're one of the few that do it.
Yeah, it was working there was actually really great. Like they took care of us, which was
clearly.
awesome.
So how do you scale up that team? To Andrew's point, like do you scale up the team beforehand? Is that what the 2 million is for? Do you have to scale it up afterwards?
Yeah, so the first step, like I mentioned, is finding the fun. And so you don't actually need to scale to do that. You can get a few developers just iterating kind of in a silo, testing with players to find that fun. Once you know you have the fun, that's when you make what we call our vertical slice. It's a small slice, a sliver of the game, one level, a few characters, just to get a feel for like what this whole game will be. That's when you know you're ready to scale. When that hits your KPIs, you know you're ready to scale. From there, it becomes those things I mentioned, competent technology and appealing art style. Those are the 2 areas that you scale in. You have the technologist, the engineer building out the networking code, but also building out tools for the artists to iterate fast and quickly so that they aren't sitting there wasting time hitting build buttons and waiting an hour long for that to change.
Your original skill set.
Yeah.
So I like hearing those things where we go back to the skills and where the skill gaps are.
No, but isn't
That's
it
a skill you
interesting?
have.
Isn't it interesting? Like, the more you listen to him speak, the more confidence. Like it sits miles outside,
Doesn't mean
right?
I can invest in the industry because we have rules.
I
that
know,
we
but
invest
I'm
in
just saying the
somewhat.
fact that we want to speaks volumes to what? Yeah.
But
How cool would that be?
Right. But you
5
also
years'
said
time.
you earlier said about T-shaped person. Where do you actually find these people? Because I think everyone's looking for them, right? I was talking to a consultant last week, and he said, we're all looking for T-shaped people, and that's why educational facilities that are liberal arts are succeeding more because they've developed T-shaped people. But everyone wants them. How do you get them?
Yeah, like networking to find employees is always difficult. And you don't need a full amount of T-shaped. You don't need everyone to be T-shaped, but it helps for sure. I found, honestly, the game jams being one of the best places to find T-shaped developers because those are the people that just want to get their hands dirty and make something, and they'll do whatever it takes in those 48 hours to make a great game. And you can find a ton of people that are willing to flex in different roles. Spots.
I'd never heard of a game jam before.
Yeah.
Had you?
No, I never even heard of a T-shape before.
You don't talk to enough consultants.
I feel that this is a great podcast. I might listen to this later on tonight. I'm learning so much stuff about gaming and where it's going to go. But with this company, I am more excited about it than I am with most because I don't know. It's very hard to describe, but it's the potential of something that just has never existed before that's going to come through that you could be playing on a console and go, wow, you were part of this?
I think at the end of the day, we're all big kids at heart, and we love just having a toy to play with.
Okay, that's it.
As someone who owns a lot of Legos, I can say that that's definitely true.
He's not wrong. So, okay, so I want you to predict into the future. Look, 5 years. Talk to us about the timeline, actually, for where it's going to get you there. And then, actually, Andrew, before I do the whole predictive stuff, any more questions on
I
that?
actually wanted to know a little bit about that because one of my third note I wrote down was high cost. How are you cost modeling for the future? Because, I could give you $2 million today, and you tell me that gets you a year, but what if you're not ready to launch in a year? What is that bridge round going to be? I don't know gaming well enough. Could that be a $3 million bridge for a $2 million original note? I mean, where are we going here? In terms of total cost to launch.
Definitely game development is a risky area, and it's oftentimes game developers will miss their deadlines.
Usually, I think, is the proper term
Yes.
there? Or always, maybe?
Yeah, if I remember hearing a story about Riot where they were going to miss their first deadline. They were running out of money, and they went to their investor and they were so freaked out about it. And they came to him and they're like, yeah, duh, we expected you to miss your first deadline. Like, we have more money.
What is it? Red Dead was like a year late. Red Dead 2 was a year late. Yoshi's Kingdom was, at least, I think, over a year late?
Yeah. It's
It
very...
just arrived one day at my door, and I was like, okay.
It's very common. And the thing is game developers will scope to whatever deadline you give them. And that's why games are always late. Because the second you tell game developers they have 2 years to make a game, the features come flying out of the books, right? Like, it'd be cool if we had this. It'd be awesome if we had this. What if we made this? And then all of a sudden, you have, 20, 30 different features to polish by the end, and it's not that easy to polish them.
And that's how you ruin fun, I assume?
Yes. That's how you miss out on like competent technology, right? Is like, that's when the bugs come in, and you have to choose, do we skip out on those bugs, fixing them and release a buggy game, or do we spend more money to fix them?
I like this. Andrew, more questions. This is good.
I actually had
For a man who doesn't know, you know a lot.
Yeah, but I don't know on the investing side. I don't know where the exits are. I don't know any of that stuff. I'm just a guy who plays some games.
What do the exits look like? So what happens after? Jean-Eric?
What are there examples of exits that have happened,
Yeah, so...
particularly in the racing and RPG spaces?
So most exits in the game industry are through acquisitions. A lot of the bigger companies will buy out some of the smaller companies. So recently, Obsidian Entertainment was purchased by Microsoft for an undisclosed amount. So that's...
But it was lots.
It was definitely lots. So that's the biggest stuff. Most game companies don't IPO, especially developers, but publishers will oftentimes. Right. So that's where you have EA and Activision and things like that. So yeah, those are usually acquisition is the way out.
And what's your plan?
Plan is acquisition, yeah.
And so, but also, that long-term plan, right? Because if you're going for the acquisition, what are you going to be working on in 3 years? What is your job going to be? Is it going to be on the recruiting side? Is it going to be still on the product? Is it going to be raising additional capital? Or are you going to be just trying to start those conversations with the potential acquirers? Like, where do you see yourself in your role going?
Yeah, my kind of dream is, and actually what I love doing as well, is just supporting others. Like, I'm a facilitator at heart, and that's part of why I loved being a tech artist, was I was helping the artists succeed. It wasn't about me getting the spotlight or being the greatest person ever. And so it's really about getting great, talented people and lifting them up. That's what I love doing. And so it's about building that team, bringing people together, getting them to succeed in whatever way I can.
Can you start an enterprise SaaS company so I can invest in you, please?
Right?
No, don't worry. After we exit this one, he's going to be able to start 10 enterprise SaaS companies.
Great.
And do you build just one game, or then do you build like multiple games on top of it? Like, talk to us about how you see the employees growing. How do you see the games growing? Or maybe you just have one game. Look, Angry Birds did okay.
But it also made movies that didn't do too well.
But it was fun though.
It was fun.
Do you know the funny thing? The great thing about like doing something like Angry Birds is you don't give a shit. Like, you're just going to do a movie. Is it going to do well, not do well? Who cares, right? It's like Pokemon. Once you've sold a pack of 5 cards for $20, you can make as many movies as you want.
Yeah, but Pokemon, it was all about that game. All about the red and blue. Red and blue, yeah. Red and blue, and then came yellow.
Yeah. Yeah, you know
Good
your
old
games. You know
and
your games.
green. There was also green. You wanted, you wanted Bulbasaur, you know.
As I live it, Andrew's like a closet guy. He knew no.
I know
Before
a
he
little too much about a bunch of random topics.
He said, "I don't know so much. I don't think so." So where does it go?
Yeah, so there's an interesting shift happening in gaming where games are moving over to games as a service, similar to like every industry right now. And I have a feeling that game companies aren't going to be about releasing a ton of games anymore, because it's like you don't invest in a tech startup and expect them to make a bunch of apps. Like, no, you expect them to solve a problem. And in that same way, I think we're going to be seeing that game companies are going to be focused on solving different problems. And so our problem that we're focusing on right now is the racing game genre and making that better for players. But the longer term goal for me is figuring out a way to bring and invite players into that development space with us so that they are making games with us and we're almost like a team with the players. And that's what really excites me and drives me at the end of the day.
I love it. Why the racing game genre?
It's underserved. Like there's 0 games as a service right now in the racing game genre.
Is Asphalt not a game as a service?
Mobile, can count as that, especially. But then Asphalt has these issues where it's almost not a real racing game anymore. It's not like multiplayer competitive PvP racing, right? Exactly.
Works well on planes.
Yeah.
That's my experience with Asphalt on planes.
And it's fun, right? Like that's kind of fun, but it's a different feeling from like, driving down a track against your friends and throwing blue shells at them and listening to them cry.
I'll have a car, you'll have a car. I'll be lobbing some grenades.
Mario Kart stream,
Yes.
And then transition that later to
Robo World.
Oh, this is so much fun. I love the vision. Andrew, what would you suggest? Later stage investing. Obviously, it's challenging at this stage. We take a flyer on the person, but as the company grows, some of the more successful companies that you have in the portfolio, what do you see that could be useful?
Well, I would be worried about the idea that love breeds success or that passion breeds success. They're obviously very important, and they're things that you want in every company. But just because someone's passionate does not mean they're going to be a good employee or a successful employee. Just because they love the field and love what you're working on doesn't mean they're going to be a good employee or a successful employee. And I think that's, if you hire based on that, you're going to struggle. Mm-hmm. I think you know that. You seem like someone that gets that, but that's one of the check boxes.
Right.
It's not the only one.
Exactly.
And culture issues. I'm concerned that you're going to be spending a lot of money on your tech talent, especially in LA. Tech salaries are going up. They're nowhere near what the Bay is, but they're still going up.
Yeah, they're pretty high.
Yeah, and you're competing against people like EA that's here,
and Riot.
Yeah. Two of the biggest game makers in the world are in LA.
Yeah, I was talking to one company that was actually mad that Riot was paying people so much because they couldn't afford that.
Yeah, no one can.
Right, and it's tough. It's tough for the little guys, but that's how they keep their.
And Riot, again, we talked about Riot has great perks. Mm-hmm. So it's not just getting someone the same salary, which is a little more attainable, actually. It's the perks. No way you can match those perks.
Yeah, and it's really who those perks attract that make that not a thing I'm worried about.
Good.
Yeah, because the people that you want, the people that I've worked with that are the most talented have almost all left Riot. The perks didn't keep them there. Yeah.
Because they're not stimulated creatively by what they're doing.
Exactly.
No, but the food tastes good.
The food's great, right?
But if you're not going to be stimulated, you might as well have a decent curry.
And that keeps you for so long. But at the end of the day, like the people aren't in the industry for the perks. They don't want a cushy job, right? They want to make great games.
And that's not. But I mean, when you're a big company, you don't really get that opportunity, right?
Yeah. No.
Because you have almost no impact. You're making. You said there were 500 developers, and what are there, like 100 product managers?
There was a good amount. There was something around like 50 product managers, then another 50 project managers. So it was pretty massive. I think there was over like 125 leaders on League alone.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And also, Riot's not going to be making other games. Riot's stuck. Riot's cash cow has a cash cow.
Yeah. They're promised that they're going to turn into Riot Games with an S. They haven't yet. They're still Riot Game, but they've promised that they will turn into Riot Games. So we'll see.
But I love the point. I mean, and this is the great thing about Jean-Eric is as not just that you feel supremely confident when you're going at this, like none of us know for sure, but the feeling is that you have a very strong vision about what you're building, and I think that's what Alex bought into the most.
That's what I'm starting to buy into.
Yeah, and the fact of and the areas of your pointing of your strengths, rather than focusing on the weaknesses against very strong competitors, using those strengths to build teams of people who are revolutionaries, who are the next level of the Riot games to bring through, I think is brilliant. So I'm still feeling pretty damn good that we put money in. Yeah, baby, we're all making money because of Jean-Eric, and we get to play with toys.
Yeah, I also want to point out that this is a lot of the themes that Jean-Eric talked about. These are themes that are really important throughout all industries, right? Talking to experts, seeing people's feedback, not just asking them, but like seeing it and observing. That's really big. And don't hire a focus group company to do that.
Yeah.
It's often best. You lose less when you do it yourself. But there's negatives to doing it yourself too, of course. Yeah. But I also like that you broke it down to 3 factors of success. Mm-hmm. I think that most founders can do that. They just don't, right?
Yeah. They're definitely not that clear about it. There was no hesitation. He knows exactly what needs to be done.
Right. I mean, we were talking to another founder earlier. He didn't have that. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that we asked for it. I think he could have come up with it. But a lot of founders don't have that. But I also think that you have the background. You've worked in multiple departments, mm-hmm. which makes it a lot easier to lead.
Yeah.
And I actually have a note here. I'll let you read that one.
Can you read his writing? God bless you.
Question mark?
Great. No, those are exclamation points. and that's what I thought when I based on what you said. Yeah. And I think there's obviously a lot of risks here, as in any game. Mm-hmm. But if there is someone I could invest in to make a game, I think it would be you. After this, what is it? 30 minutes, 35 minutes.
So I cannot think of a better way to finish the podcast. Anybody who's looking to get in contact with Andrew should contact with me, as with all family offices. They do tremendous work in the local region, but are obviously private about their things because they want to have great startups rather than great publicity. But Jean-Eric, you want to have great publicity. Mm-hmm. So let everybody know how they can contact you, specifically incredible designers and developers of games who are sick and tired of settling for the boring and the mundane, and they want to break out for the greatest game that has ever been built, where they can drive cars and throw bombs at people.
Love it.
And investors as well. We'll take investors too, by the way. $2 million.
Yeah, easiest way to reach me is actually on Twitter. It's just JXE. I got in early.
Damn. I thought I got in early. I have 6 characters.
JXE.
It has been a pleasure having you. Andrew, it is always a pleasure having you.
Can I tell people what game I'm making?
Do you want to?
Yeah.
You want to go into it?
I'd love to, yeah.
Cool. Hit it.
Yeah, so the game is called Space Racing Legends. We're bringing the best of arcade racers and esports. We're combining those two things together. You can think of the game like Mario Kart meets Overwatch or League of Legends. And hope you guys are playing it one day and maybe part of the team.
I love this guy. We're going to have so much fun. Okay, that's a wrap. It's been great. You've heard another brilliant entrepreneur creating the future of everything. In this case, gaming. Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.